Thank you, Miss Elena Fanetti. Without any further ado, we'll go straight to the question session. So, we will take a series of three questions first, then we'll take another series of three later. Mr. Director General, please, you have the floor. Thank you very much for congratulations to all the presenters. For Morocco, I would like to ask if it's possible for students who are in Morocco who are about to complete their studies in computer sciences or in other fields of studies that are of interest to Morocco, for them to have employment contracts, short-term employment contracts before they return to the country. It could help Morocco so that when they come back, they should have some experience. Can an APEC do that for us? For Miss Elena, on the European Union Trust Fund from La Valette, is Togo amongst? Is Togo eligible? I'd like to know. So I can shake my government to go grab some projects. On the external fund, how do we have it? I like to have the documentation so I can know if my government can ask for resources. Now, what does the European Union, what would the European Union build on to give form to concrete elements of the global compact? I know the country is writing something to see if we can find money to train people in our countries for markets that have needs. These are my questions. Thank you. Thank you to all the presenters. My question is on professional mobility. What do I mean by professional mobility? Apart from professional migration, we have multinationals today. This question is for our friend from Morocco. There is professional mobility, that is workers that multinationals send from one country to another. That's so there is a problem, especially in Central Africa, where you find a Cameroonian who finds himself in the DRC, and for example, who works for MTN. He is transferred from Cameroon to DRC. What is his status? Who takes care of him? Which instrument regulates his presence there? Do you have any concrete examples? And tell us if there are any regulatory frameworks, any instruments. For Miss Elena, I saw her last presentation, she talked of legal migration and mobility. At the level of the European Union, I know there is a debate that has been ongoing with Polish workers who go to work in France and so on. But regarding professional mobility of European multinationals that exchange workers, what is done so that these workers, are there any instruments that govern them when they have issues? For example, they leave Belgium for France and then he has issues in France. Who is in charge of them? And I'll end still with Miss Elena. I saw the last emo projects, but I don't know if you are the ones who chose PNDP, because we have the National Employment Fund that has a program called USHEC that takes care of HEMO. Why did the European Union not choose the National Employment Fund but chose PNDP? which does not work in a tripartite setting, because we should say that when you have a project that concerns employment, you need to work with structures that can have an eye to check if there is different decent work. PNDP is not part of that. So the trade union cannot go and see the PNDP and tell them, listen, you people don't practice decent work in this project. Why did you choose PNDP rather than the National Employment Fund, that is a structure in charge of creating jobs? Thank you for giving me the floor, Madam Moderator. My question goes to Elena, because I'm the National Employment Fund. I would like to appreciate the fact that the European Union is multiplying initiatives, but I have a feeling that the European Union is doing it without thinking of integrating those who, in an operational manner, as the President was saying a while ago, will be operational instruments for the implementation of these projects that you initiate. I remember that in 2010, the European Union set up the pilot program, partnership for the management of professional migration, and Benin, Cameroon, Mali, and Senegal were part of this program. And in Cameroon, I was in charge of managing this program at this trial phase. I'm sorry, unfortunately, it didn't work out after our various meetings here and there, simply because the laws at the level of Europe were not yet advanced. So I would like to know today, because we had to provide at the request of European countries to place at your disposal migrants from our countries who are qualified to work. This database that I had sent to Pôle Emploi for a number of positions that they are sent to me, these profiles are still in my computer till today. So I would like to know if there was any progress made, because the problem was at the level of the laws. He had to go through the parliament in France before going to the Senate. That was the issue. So we'll allow the two presenters to respond, then we'll come back to you, please. Okay. I'm Sambala Sidibe from Mali. I have a question following the question of the GM of Benin. There is an issue of internship. I think ANAPEC can help us to well, that was a sub question concerning the question from the friend from Togo. My next question goes to the European Union. There are experiences that the European Union needs to see how to address. In Mali, we have an experience with France where the management of migrants who return willfully, it's been working. Why not extend it to European countries that can bring people to stay? We have an experience with migrants as well from Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, that have created a school that teaches trades to the youth, and by teaching them these trades, it uh, settles them. Can this kind of program not receive support or expansion in other African countries? Today, regarding employment, people are talking of competence. If you help us to develop competence, it will help these youth who cannot travel out. And I am thinking about migration, and I wonder sometimes, is migration not feeding migration? Because the way migrants are being treated, the way those who are returned are treated, are we not fueling migration? And another issue about PNGP, the results are mitigated per country. We have what did not work for us in our country is pre-employment, but for every other thing we had interesting results or outcomes. Thank you. I'm Bagza Bogo Azariel from Chad. My question is to Mr. Joseph regarding your presentation. I'd like to seize the opportunity to salute the pertinence of your presentation and give you a very special mark. My worry, however, is to understand, because you say you've signed treaties with the Gulf, and I'd like to know, you said that there are firms that are in relation with these migrants, that are in touch with these migrants. What are the indicators that prove that these migrants are actually treated decently? Because there is no day where they are not maltreated. And I want to share our experience, because it is true that in West Africa integration is succeeding, but in the CEMAC area we still have a lot of it's an uphill task. In my country particularly, there are instruments that regulate the employment of foreigners. I hope that with the belt of this partnership that was signed a few days ago, I hope it would help to make in such a way that this convention should be effective, should make our sub-regional integration effective. So that is the impression I wanted to share. Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Joseph as well. You talked about migrants from Kenya. What is being done for those who enter Kenya? If there are no further questions, then we can start answering. So I'll give the floor to the various presenters for them to answer the questions addressed to them. So we'll start with Miss Elena. Regarding the eligibility of Togo, I will say no, they are not eligible. These are political decisions taken in Brussels. Don't ask me why, please. The emergency trust fund, but External investment funds, yes. You can go to the European Union delegation in Lome to for further information. I'm not the UN on global contact. Sorry, I can't speak on their behalf. Regarding professional mobility within the European Union, I said I'm not the expert of what happens in the European Union. I take care of their external policy, that is Africa and Cameroon. So I really cannot answer the question on Polish workers. Why was PNDP chosen rather than the National Employment Fund? It's because PNDP was already doing that. It represents councils and is in a very close relationship with the councils of the far north. It is on the field, and it was not the first phase. I think that was the second or the third phase, and that was a project that the PNDP had started, and of course it will continue out, from funds from the trust fund. Regarding the involvement of the National Employment Fund in our work, I think there is a synergy that has been established, especially on the integration of returning migrants, and I hope that we'll continue that collaboration and see what we can do together when it comes to crisis regions in the far north and north regions. We have to do that as a matter of urgency. We need agencies that are operational on the field that can work in red areas, red zones. But we need to continue with this good collaboration with the National Employment Fund. I don't know exactly what the PGP is all about. I've been in Cameroon for 3 years. I really cannot give you an answer to that. Now, the question from Mali. Okay. OFI is funded is present in Cameroon. Unfortunately, they are not here today. They have a project which we co-finance and we give to a project selection committee. So there is some monitoring of what is done by the European Union. It's not totally detached from our policies. So returning migrants, open the school to train them. It could help to settle the youth. Of course, it's a good initiative. I encourage you to enter in touch with in contact with the European Union delegation to see how if they could support you. As I said, Mali is a beneficiary of the emergency trust fund. Madam Moderator, with your permission, just to add to what you said, to add that the European Union has launched the Archipelago program that Elena knows very well. Maybe you could go and talk with her about that program. It was focused on the funding of training centers. Mr. Isham. I will start with your question on the on the conditions to access these trainings. For vocational training, there is only one main condition: be a regular immigrant. But for the main three actors on training, the Ministry of Handicrafts or the Professional Training Office, it requires a level of education. So the migrant should be regular. He should have a certificate to have a training after which you have a certificate. Another condition, the migrant equally could attend short courses which don't necessarily need a certificate. Every migrant can benefit from every service. There is no particular need to be regularized. Same for handicraft. There is no condition for regularization. Even those who are not regular or who just got to Morocco can get training either with the handicraft or artisanal sector. For ANAPEC, it's a little complicated because ANAPEC, since it does placements in companies, the condition for the migrant to be regularized is utmost. Secondly, ANAPEC has developed specific contracts to help young Moroccans, to help migrants benefit from these programs. Of course, there is, for the Moroccan, you must have at least a baccalaureate or the A level, and the migrant should equally justify an A level or its equivalent to have specific contracts from ANAPEC. But for integration in the labor market, ANAPEC depends on the conditions set out by the companies to recruit. So, the situation of students in Morocco who there are about 10 to 15,000 sub-Saharan students in Morocco. Many of them don't go back to their countries of origin, they stay in Morocco. Most of them have benefited from the regularization phase. So they benefited from the residence permit, and now they are trying to forge their careers. Now, regarding internships, we are thinking with the Ministry of Migration to develop the competence of migrants in our country that are likely to come back, knowing that in Morocco there are many companies that are settled in established in many African countries. So the Ministry of Migration is pushing these companies to take migrants, train them, give them the opportunity to have experience so that they can go back to their countries of origin and work in these Moroccan companies. So they should acquire know-how that should benefit their countries of origin. Of course, it's not obvious, but it's working gradually. But so far, we've recorded some very good results. As some state companies are beginning to do that. Regarding professional mobility, I really don't have any information on that issue. But you know that Morocco would host the African Observatory on Migration Issues, and it will be in Rabat, and the representative of each country will be there in that observatory, and I'll be trying to harmonize procedures, laws, and even experience sharing. So I think this question is of interest to the observatory that would kick off very soon. Internship of sorry, question on internships at ANAPEC. I cannot talk for ANAPEC. Unfortunately, the representative of ANAPEC is not around. So So I will give the floor to my Tunisian colleague. An APEC, they provide their services, but they don't provide internship. It is not an APEC that provides internship. An APEC simply supports in the job market. They mediate. They also have a small project. The Belgian agency supports them. Means if there is a position that the migrant is competent and there is an opening, an APEC can encourage the migrant to take a short course so that he will be fully equipped to work in that vacant position. Regarding the Global Forum, Morocco, through the Ministry of Migration, since Morocco has hosted a Global Forum last time, every year the Ministry of Migration sends us a chart following the objectives that were signed and validated by the forum, the progress made by every institution, every development agency, and every donor or every NGO, so that Morocco every year should present its yearly report. I think that maybe Youssef could say something more on the. Thank you. With the authorization from Madam Moderator, I want to. I'm the honorary president of this Association of Sub-Saharan African Students, and I'd like to add to what you just said, to say that there are many students from Sub-Saharan Africa who come back to their country with uh, business ideas with their Tunisian partners, and it's an extraordinary opportunity. And we all, as Africans today, have to develop South-South cooperation. It should not only be North-South or South-North, but there is South-South cooperation that we need to carry out. Regarding the issue of migrants, what we should know and what's very important is that Morocco or Tunisia are passage countries. They are not really host countries, so that transforming themselves into host countries for 2 to 3 years now. But at the base, when the youth who come in illegally into Tunisia or Morocco, their objective is not to settle in Tunisia or Morocco. Their objective is to spend some time there and move on to Europe. Then they realize that there are opportunities in those countries that are of interest to them. Then they decide to stay, and then that's why today we have decided to put up a support mechanism in vocational training to host them and help them to work, because we too are living we are experiencing shortage in some jobs, and it's our pleasure to receive these people who come. Now, if you permit me, on the EU, one of the problems that I realize in all the presentations is a problem of shared responsibility between our countries and international bodies that support us. In that, there's a lack of coordination on both sides. And let me explain. Then we'll talk about migration. In the National Agency for Employment that I represent in Tunisia, I receive the Italian cooperation. The next week, the following week, the German cooperation. The next week, the French cooperation. And each one of them will talk to me about the way in which they see migration and the way they see the treatment, the way returnees are treated, the way they see secular migration, asking me to adapt to these new demands, in quotes. So I tell them it is my fault If I am unable to coordinate the arrival of these returnees as Tunisian states, not as Aneti, it's up to us to see how to have a common policy. But what we need to have to know is that there is need for a common policy from our European partners on hosting of migrants. I know people who govern in the various European countries are not the same and don't have the same orientations, and while some of them are from the right, others are from the left. But I've heard about the European Union. They too need to understand that there is also a union that they lead, and that's where I realize that the role of the EU is capital. That's why we receive suggestions from various European countries that even make us get lost. Italy is asking this, and then another European country is asking for something else. So, in my opinion, if we want to take care of legal migration, there must be some coordination work either from our states on how we want to receive or send migrants back, but coordination at the level of our countries, our friendly countries, and European partners. And I think the European Union has a major role to play. Thank you. Let me share this remark. Personally, a migrant is first of all a human being, and migration is a right. No one has a right to tell us we're clandestine or whatever migrants. That is from Europe, and it came out in the 90s, and unfortunately, it is still used. The objective is to trivialize migration, trivialize a human being, trivialize all what we see happening in the Mediterranean. Look at the number of Africans who die in the Mediterranean, and which doesn't seem to move anyone. So sometimes we should look and see migration as from a humanitarian perspective. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about human beings and nothing else. Thank you.
Madam.
Okay. Let me start with a question from my colleague from Chad on the proof that the migrants are treated decently. Now, you find that, as I have said, most of the people who are taken to the Gulf and other areas are taken there by private recruitment agencies. However, we have some illegal recruitment agencies in Kenya. And those illegal recruitment agencies usually send people to that region, the Gulf region, using the visit visa. And you know, if you have a visit visa, you cannot be denied from traveling. So recruitment agencies thrive on that. They take people to those countries using the visit visa. So we might find some Kenyans suffering there, and those who are suffering there in the Gulf must have been taken by illegal recruitment agencies. However, the government is trying as much as it can to ensure that we eradicate that menace. We don't want people to be taken out there without using the proper channel. So if anybody is taken to outside the country by any illegal recruitment agency, we treat that as human trafficking. and the consequences are severe. Once you are caught taking somebody outside the country without the license, then you are punished according to the laws of Kenya. Now, there are also some instances where some of these girls going to Saudi Arabia have other motives. They just want to leave the country, and the moment they leave the country and let's say they are out there with the employers, they look for ways of disappearing to go and work elsewhere where they can be paid more. If that happens, the agent reports immediately, the agent on the other end. Again, we have labor attaches in the countries where we have bilateral labor agreements. In the case of any problem, Kenyans are supposed to report to the nearest labor attache, and we get the information on what they are doing. If they are in distress, we also get that information, and we ensure that that person is brought back to Kenya. Again, it is important to note that the recruitment agencies are supposed to have a security bond so that if any Kenyan who has been sent out, or if they send a Kenyan to some of those destination countries, and it happens that that Kenyan is distressed, we use that security bond to bring back the Kenyan. That is why, as I said, the Musanet system that was developed by Saudi Arabia is working very well, because we are able to trace these Kenyan migrants. Now, going to the other question by Madam Moderator, what is being done to those who enter Kenya? Now, we know that to enter Kenya, you must, if you come to Kenya, you must have a visa for some countries. But if you know very well that you're coming to work in Kenya, you must have a work permit. And the work permit is only issued to those who come to Kenya and they have special skills. You cannot come to Kenya to work as an accountant, because you have many accountants there. You cannot come to Kenya to work as a teacher. We have so many teachers here. You cannot come here to take up their jobs. So we look at the skills that are not available in Kenya before we give the work permit. So without the work permit, you cannot come to Kenya. Now, East Africans can come to Kenya and work because there's free movement of labor. I can go to Tanzania and work there. Sometimes we have special arrangements. For example, we have Chinese who are in Kenya constructing the standard gauge railway. We have some agreements with them. They can bring their people there to work, but then there must be an understanding. What do I mean by this? If you are working there as an engineer, you must have a Kenyan working under you, so that that Kenyan can understand and get the experience on whatever you are doing. Those understandings are very important, because the moment these people leave, then the Kenyan will take over the job. Now, we also have a problem in that we have refugees. You know, in Kenya, there's the Dadaab camp, refugee camp. And that camp is full of Somalis and some other people who come from other countries where there's war. some of these refugees try to work there in Kenya to sneak from the camps, but then we treat them like any other criminal. There are times when Ethiopians come to Kenya, but they don't come to Kenya to work, but they are on their way to other places. Therefore, some of these people are caught, maybe they are put in one room. You find around 50 people in one room. They are hide there, but the moment they are caught, they are deported. Again, if I can share with you this, there's a time we are under the Chinese doing some business in Kenya. They come to Kenya to work in the standard gauge railway, but others have other motives. They start selling second-hand clothes, sometimes not second-hand clothes, new clothes, and other items from China. They compete with Kenyans, but most of them were deported. Therefore, in order for one to come to Kenya and work effectively without any problem, you must have proper documents. Without proper documents, we cannot allow. Thank you.
Rise migration, but the question remains. Is migration a solution to the unemployment issues that African countries face? That is a question I'm asking myself, and on that score, I would end so that each one of us should try to think about it and see concretely in accompanying our job seekers. Should we orient them towards migration, or should we not examine the question deeper, making the programs we make available to them more efficient so that they should be integrated in the economic circuits of their country? Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, dear speakers. Just a minute, please. I'd like to thank the panelists and the Executive Secretary of WAPES, dear colleague. I just want to say something regarding this theme, and I think it is right at the level of WAPES to have the resolutions of the previous workshops so that we can bring up some of these recommendations that have been made and integrate them in the general report of these workshops, because it's important. We talked about migration so much in all regions, so it's important that the recommendations of other workshops should be included in this one so that the best lessons can be drawn. Secondly, I would like to say that to answer the question on migration is to know whether migration is a solution to unemployment. The condition is that our states should understand that it is their responsibility to situate and analyze their population and know when a citizen should leave the country, when he should come back. It is not the fault of the European Union or our partners. Of course, they too have their partners, but the primary responsibility is the country of departure, because we have the duty to work to ensure to reduce migratory flows. So that is a precision I wanted to bring. Thank you.